November 2033. The fire balloons. Fire exploded over summer night lawns. You saw sparkling faces of uncles and aunts. Skyrockets fell up in the brown, shining eyes of cousins on the porch. The cold, charred sticks thumped down in dry meadows far away. The Most Reverend Father Joseph Daniel Peregrine opened his eyes. What a dream! He and his cousins with their fiery play at his grandfather's ancient Ohio home so many years ago. He lay listening to the great hollow of the church, the other cells where other fathers lay. Had they, too, on the eve of the flight of the rocket crucifix, lain with memories of the 4th of July? Yes. This was like those breathless Independence dawns when you waited for the first concussion, rushed out on the dewy sidewalks, your hands full of loud miracles. So here they were, the Episcopal Fathers, in the breathing dawn before they pinwheeled off to Mars, leaving their incense through the velvet cathedral of space. Should we go at all? Whispered Father Peregrine. Shouldn't we solve our own sins on earth? Aren't we running from our lives here? He rose, his fleshy body, with his rich look of strawberries, milk, and steak, moving heavily. Or is it sloth, he wondered. Do I dread the journey? He stepped into the needle spray shower. I shall take you to Mars, body, he addressed himself, leaving old sins here, and on to Mars to find new sins. A delightful thought, almost. Sins no one had ever thought of. Oh, he himself had written a little book, The Problem of Sin on Other Worlds, ignored or somehow not serious enough to his Episcopal brethren. Only last night, over a final cigar, he and Father Stone had talked of it. On Mars, sin might appear as virtue. We must guard against virtuous acts there that later might be found to be sins, said Father Peregrine, beaming. How exciting! It's been centuries since so much adventure has accompanied the prospect of being a missionary. I will recognize sin, said Father Stone bluntly, even on Mars. Oh, we priests pride ourselves on being litmus paper, changing color in sin's presence, retorted Father Peregrine. But what if Martian chemistry is such we do not color at all? If there are new senses on Mars, you must admit the possibility of unrecognizable sin. If there is no malice aforethought, there is no sin or punishment for same. The Lord assures us that, Father Stone replied. On earth, yes. Perhaps a Martian sin might inform the subconscious of its evil telepathically, leaving the conscious mind of man free to act seemingly without malice. What then? What could there be in the way of new sins? Father Peregrine leaned heavily forward. Adam alone did not sin. Add Eve and you add temptation. Add a second man and you make adultery possible. With the addition of sex or people, you add sin. If men were harmless, they could not strangle with their hands. You would not have that particular sin of murder. Add arms and you add the possibility of a new violence. Amoebas cannot sin because they reproduce by fission. They do not covet wives or murder each other. Add sex to amoebas, add arms and legs, and you would have murder and adultery. Add an arm or leg or person or take away each, and you add or subtract possible evil. On Mars, what if there are 5 new senses? Possible, invisible limbs we cannot conceive of. Then mightn't there be 5 new sins? Father Stone gasped. I think you enjoy this sort of thing. I keep my mind alive, Father. Just alive is all. Your mind's always juggling, isn't it? Mirrors, torches, plates. Yes, because sometimes the church seems like those posed circus tableaus where the curtain lifts and men, white, zinc oxide, talcum powder statues, freeze to represent abstract beauty. Very wonderful. I hope there will always be room for me to dart about among the statues, don't you, Father Stone? Father Stone had moved away. I think we'd better go to bed. In a few hours we'll be jumping up to see your new sins, Father Peregrine. The rocket stood ready for the firing. The fathers walked from their devotions in the chilly morning. Many a fine priest from New York or Chicago or Los Angeles, the church was sending its best, walked across town to the frosty field. Walking, Father Peregrine remembered the bishop's words. Father Peregrine, you will captain the missionaries with Father Stone at your side. Having chosen you for this serious task, I find my reasons deplorably obscure, Father. But your pamphlet on planetary sins did not go unread. You're a flexible man. And Mars is like that uncleaned closet we have neglected for millenniums. Sin has collected there like bric-a-brac. Mars is twice Earth's age and has double the number of Saturday nights, liquor baths, and eye-popping at women as naked as white seals. When we open that closet door, things will fall on us. We need a quick, flexible man, one whose mind can dodge. Anyone a little dogmatic might break in two. I feel you'll be resilient, Father. The job is yours. The bishop and the fathers knelt. The blessing was said, and the rocket given a little shower of holy water. Arising, the bishop addressed them. I know you will go with God to prepare the Martians for the reception of his truth. I wish you all a thoughtful journey. They filed past the bishop, 20 men, robes whispering, to deliver their hands into his kind hands before passing into the cleansing projectile. I wonder, said Father Peregrine at the last moment, if Mars is hell, only waiting for our arrival before it bursts into brimstone and fire. Lord be with us, said Father Stone. The rocket moved. Coming out of space was like coming out of the most beautiful cathedral they had ever seen. Touching Mars was like touching the ordinary pavement outside the church 5 minutes after having really known your love for God. The father stepped gingerly from the steaming rocket and knelt upon Martian sand while Father Peregrine gave thanks. Lord, we thank thee for the journey through thy rooms. And Lord, we've reached a new land, so we must have new eyes. We shall hear new sounds, we must needs have new ears, and there will be new sins, for which we ask the gift of better and firmer and purer hearts. Amen. They arose, and here was Mars like a sea under which they trudged in the guise of submarine biologists seeking life. Here the territory of hidden sin. How carefully they must all balance, like gray feathers, in this new element, afraid that walking itself might be sinful, or breathing, or simple fasting. And here was the mayor of First Town come to meet them with outstretched hands. What can I do for you, Father Peregrine? We'd like to know about the Martians, for only if we know about them can we plan our church intelligently. Are they 10 feet tall? We will build large doors. Are their skins blue or red or green? We must know when we put human figures in the stained glass, so we may use the right skin color. Are they heavy? We will build sturdy seats for them. Father, said the mayor, I don't think you should worry about the Martians. There are 2 races. One of them is pretty well dead. A few are in hiding. The second race, well, they're not quite human. Oh, Father Peregrine's heart quickened. They're round, luminous globes of light, Father, living in those hills. Man or beast, who can say? But they act intelligently, I hear. The mayor shrugged. Of course they're not men, so I don't think you'll care. On the contrary, said Father Peregrine swiftly. Intelligent, you say? There's a story. A prospector broke his leg in those hills and would have died there. The blue spheres of light came at him. When he woke, he was down on a highway and didn't know how he got there. Drunk, said Father Stone. That's the story, said the mayor. Father Peregrine, with most of the Martians dead and only those blue spheres, I frankly think you'd be better off in First City. Mars is opening up. It's a frontier now, like the old days on Earth, out west and in Alaska. Men are pouring up there. There are a couple thousand black Irish mechanics and miners and day laborers in First Town who need saving, because there are too many wicked women came with them, too much 10th-century-old Martian wine. Father Peregrine was gazing into the soft blue hills. Father Stone cleared his throat. Well, Father? Father Peregrine did not hear. Spheres of blue fire? Yes, Father. Ah, Father Peregrine sighed. Blue balloons. Father Stone shook his head. A circus? Father Peregrine felt his wrists pounding. He saw the little frontier town with raw, fresh-built sin. He saw the hills, old with the oldest and yet perhaps an even newer, to him, sin. Mayor, could your black Irish laborers cook one more day in hellfire? I'd turn and baste them for you, Father. Father Peregrine nodded to the hills. And that's where we'll go. There's a murmur from everyone. It would be so simple, explained Father Peregrine, to go into town. I prefer to think that if the Lord walked here and people said, here's the beaten path, he would reply, show me the weeds. I will make a path. But, Father Stone, think how it would weigh upon us if we passed sinners by and did not extend our hands. But globes of fire. I imagine man looked funny to other animals when we first appeared. Yet he has a soul, for all his homeliness. Until you prove otherwise, let us assume that these fiery spheres have souls." "All right," agreed the mayor. "You'll be back to town. We'll see. First some breakfast, and you and I, Father Stone, will walk alone into the hills. Don't want to frighten those fiery Martians with machines or crowds. Shall we have breakfast?" The fathers ate in silence. At nightfall, Father Peregrine and Father Stone were high in the hills. They stopped and sat upon a rock to enjoy a moment of relaxation and waiting. The Martians had not yet appeared. Both felt vaguely disappointed. "I wonder," Father Peregrine mopped his face, "do you think if we called hello, they might answer?" "Father Peregrine, won't you ever be serious?" "Not until the good Lord is." "Oh, don't look so terribly shocked, please. The Lord is not serious. In fact, it's a little hard to know just what else he is except loving. And love has to do with humor, doesn't it? You cannot love someone unless you put up with him, can you? You cannot put up with someone constantly unless you can laugh at him. Isn't that true? And certainly we are ridiculous little animals wallowing in the fudge bowl, and God must love us all the more because we appeal to his humor." "I never thought of God as humorous," said Father Stone. "The creator of the platypus, the camel, the ostrich, and man—" "Oh, come now." Father Peregrine laughed. But at this instant, from among the twilight hills, like a series of blue lamps lit to guide their way, came the Martians. Father Stone saw them first. "Look!" Father Peregrine turned, and the laughter stopped in his mouth. The round blue globes of fire hovered among the twinkling stars, distantly trembling. "Monsters!" Father Stone leaped up, but Father Peregrine caught him. "Wait! We should have gone to town." "No, listen, look!" pleaded Father Peregrine. "I'm afraid." "Don't be. This is God's work." "The devil's." "No, now, quiet." Father Peregrine gentled him, and they crouched with a soft blue light on their upturned faces as the fiery orbs drew near. And again, Independence Night, thought Father Peregrine, tremoring. He felt like a child back in those July 4th evenings, the sky blowing apart, breaking into powdery stars and burning sound, the concussions jingling house windows like the ice on 1,000 thin ponds, the aunts, uncles, cousins, crying, "Ah!" as if some celestial physician, the summer sky colors, and the fire balloons, led by an indulgent grandfather, steadied in his massively tender hands. Oh, the memory of those lovely fire balloons, softly lighted, warmly billowed bits of tissue like insect wings, lying like folded wasps in boxes, last of all, after the day of riot and fury, long last from their boxes, delicately unfolded, blue, red, white, patriotic, the fire balloons. He saw the dim faces of dear relatives long dead and mantled with moss as grandfather lit the tiny candle and let the warm air breathe up to form the balloon plumply luminous in his hands, a shining vision which they held, reluctant to let it go, for, once released, it was yet another year gone by from life, another fourth, another bit of beauty vanished. Then up, up, still up to the warm summer night constellations the fire balloons had drifted. White, red, white and blue eyes followed them, wordless, from family porches. Away into deep Illinois country, over night rivers and sleeping mansions, the fire balloons dwindled, forever gone. Father Peregrine felt tears in his eyes. Above him the Martians, not one, but 1,000 whispering fire balloons, it seemed, hovered. Any moment he might find his long-dead and blessed grandfather at his elbow, staring up at beauty. But it was Father Stone. "Let's go, please, Father. I must speak to them." Father Peregrine rustled forward, not knowing what to say. What had he ever said to the fire balloons of time past, except with his mind? "You are beautiful. You are beautiful." And that was not enough now. He could only lift his heavy arms and call upward, as he had often wished to call after the enchanted fire balloons. "Hello!" But the fiery spheres only burned like images in a dark mirror. They seemed fixed, gaseous, miraculous, forever. "Oh, we come with God," said Father Peregrine to the sky. "Silly, silly, silly." Father Stone chewed the back of his hand. "In the name of God, Father Peregrine, stop." But now the phosphorescent spheres blew away into the hills. In a moment they were gone. Father Peregrine called again, and the echo of his last cry shook the hills above. Turning, he saw an avalanche shake out dust, pause, and then, with a thunder of stone wheels, crash down the mountains upon them. "Look what you've done!" cried Father Stone. Father Peregrine was almost fascinated, then horrified. He turned, knowing they could run only a few feet before the rocks crushed them into ruins. He had time to whisper, "Oh, Lord," and the rocks fell. "Father." They were separated like chaff from wheat. There was a blue shimmering of globes, a shift of cold stars, a roar, and they stood upon a ledge 200 feet away, watching the spot where their bodies would have been buried under tons of stone. The blue light evaporated. The two fathers clutched each other. What happened? The blue fires lifted us. We ran, that was it. No, the globe saved us. They couldn't. They did. The sky was empty. It was a feel as if a great bell had just stopped tolling. Reverberations lingered in their teeth and marrow. Let's get away from here. You'll have us killed. I haven't feared death for a good many years, Father Stone. We've proved nothing. Those blue lights ran off at the first cry. It's useless. No. Father Peregrine was suffused with a stubborn wonder. Somehow they saved us. That proves they have souls. It proves only that they might have saved us. Everything was confused. We might have escaped ourselves. They're not animals, Father Stone. Animals do not save lives, especially of strangers. There's mercy and compassion here. Perhaps tomorrow we may prove more. Prove what? How? Father Stone was immensely tired now. The outrage in his mind and body showed on his stiff face. Follow them in helicopters reading chapter and verse. They're not human. They haven't eyes or ears or bodies like ours. But I feel something about them, replied Father Peregrine. I know a great revelation is at hand. They saved us. They think. They had a choice. Let us live or die. That proves free will. Father Stone set to work building a fire, glaring at the sticks in his hands, choking on the gray smoke. I myself will open a convent for nursing geese, a monastery for sainted swine. I shall bring a miniature apse into a microscope so that paramecium can attend services and tell their beads with their flagella. Oh, Father Stone. I'm sorry. Father Stone blinked redly across the fire. This is like blessing a crocodile before he chews you up. You're risking the entire missionary expedition. We belong in First Town, washing liquor from men's throats and perfume off their hands. Can't you recognize the human in the inhuman? I'd much rather recognize the inhuman in the human. But if I prove these things sin, no immoral life, have free will and intellect, Father Stone, that will take much convincing. The night grew rapidly cold, and they peered into the fire to find their wildest thoughts while eating biscuits and berries. Soon they were bundled for sleep under the chiming stars. And just before turning over one last time, Father Stone, who had been thinking for many minutes to find something to bother Father Peregrine about, stared into the soft pink charcoal bed and said, Not Adam and Eve on Mars, no original sin. Maybe the Martians live in a state of God's grace, and we could go back down to town and start work on the Earthmen. Father Peregrine reminded himself to say a little prayer for Father Stone, who got so mad and who was now being vindictive, God help him. Yes, Father Stone, but the Martians killed some of our settlers. That's sinful. It must have been an original sin, and a Martian Adam and Eve. We'll find them. Men are men, unfortunately, no matter what their shape, and inclined to sin. Father Stone was pretending to sleep. Father Peregrine did not shut his eyes. Of course, they could have let these Martians go to hell, could they? With a compromise to their consciences, could they go back to the new colonial towns, those towns so full of sinful gullets and women with scintilla eyes and white oyster bodies rollicking in bed with lonely laborers? Wasn't that the place for the fathers? Wasn't this trek into the hills merely a personal whim? Was he really thinking of God's church? Was he quenching the thirst of a sponge-like curiosity? Those blue round globes of St. Anthony's fire, how they burned in his mind. What a challenge, to find the man behind the mask, the human behind the inhuman. Wouldn't he be proud if he could say, even to his secret self, he had converted a rolling huge pool table full of fiery spheres? What a sin of pride, worth doing penance for. But then one did many prideful things out of love, and he loved the Lord so much and was so happy at it that he wanted everyone else to be happy too. The last thing he saw before sleep was the return of the blue fires, like a flight of burning angels silently singing him to his worried rest. The blue round dreams were still there in the sky when Father Peregrine awoke in the early morning. Father Stone slept like a stiff bundle quietly. Father Peregrine watched the Martians floating and watching him. They were human. He knew it. But he must prove it or face a dry-mouthed, dry-eyed bishop telling him kindly to step aside. But how to prove humanity if they hid in the high vaults of the sky? How to bring them nearer and provide answers to the many questions? They saved us from the avalanche. Father Peregrine arose, moved off among the rock, and began to climb the nearest hill till he came to a place where a cliff dropped sheerly to a floor 200 feet below. He was choking from his vigorous climb in the frosty air. He stood, getting his breath. If I fell from here, it would surely kill me. He let a pebble drop. Moments later, it clicked on the rocks below. The Lord would never forgive me. He tossed another pebble. It wouldn't be suicide, would it, if I did it out of love? He lifted his gaze to the blue spheres. But first, another try. He yelled at them. Hello! Hello! The echoes tumbled upon each other, but the blue fire did not blink or move. He talked to them for 5 minutes. When he stopped, he peered down and saw Father Stone, still indignantly asleep, below in the little camp. I must prove everything. Father Peregrine stepped to the cliff rim. I'm an old man. I'm not afraid. Surely the Lord will understand that I am doing this for him. He drew a deep breath. All his life slammed through his eyes, and he thought, in a moment shall I die? I'm afraid that I loved living much too much, but I love things more. And thinking thus, he stepped off the cliff. He fell. Fool, he cried. He tumbled end over end. You were wrong. The rocks rushed up at him, and he saw himself dashed on them and sent to glory. Why did I do this thing? But he knew the answer, and an instant later was calm as he fell. The wind roared around him, and the rocks hurtled to meet him. Then there was a shift of stars, a glimmering of blue light. He felt himself surrounded by blueness and suspended. A moment later he was deposited with a gentle bump upon the rocks, where he sat a full moment, alive and touching himself, looking up at these blue lights that had withdrawn instantly. You saved me, he whispered. You wouldn't let me die. You knew it was wrong. He rushed over to Father Stone, who still lay quietly asleep. Father, Father, wake up. He shook him and brought him around. Father, they saved me. Who saved you? Father Stone blinked and sat up. Father Peregrine related his experience. A dream, a nightmare. Go back to sleep, said Father Stone irritably. You and your circus balloons. But I was awake. Now, Father, calm yourself. There now. You didn't believe me. You don't believe me. Have you a gun? Yes. There, let me have it. What are you going to do? Father Stone handed over the small pistol they had brought along for protection against snakes or other similar unpredictable animals. Father Peregrine seized the pistol. I'll prove it. He pointed the pistol in his own hand and fired. Stop! There was a shimmer of light, and before their eyes the bullet stood upon the air, poised an inch from his open palm. It hung for a moment, surrounded by blue phosphorescence. Then it fell, hissing, into the dust. Father Peregrine fired the gun 3 times, at his hand, at his leg, at his body. The 3 bullets hovered, glittering, and like dead insects, fell at their feet. You see, said Father Peregrine, letting his arm fall and allowing the pistol to drop after the bullets. They know. They understand. They're not animals. They think and judge and live in a moral climate. What animal would save me from myself like this? There's no animal would do that. Only another man, Father. Now do you believe? Father Stone was watching the sky and the blue lights, and now silently he dropped to one knee and picked up the warm bullets and cupped them in his hand. He closed his hand tight. The sun was rising behind them. I think we'd better go down to the others and tell them of this and bring them back up here, said Father Peregrine. By the time the sun was up, they were well on their way back to the rocket. Father Peregrine drew the round circle in the center of the blackboard. This is Christ, the Son of the Father. He pretended not to hear the other father's sharp intakes of breath. This is Christ in all his glory, he continued. Looks like a geometry problem, observed Father Stone. A fortunate comparison, for we deal with symbols here. Christ is no less Christ, you must admit, being represented by a circle or a square. For centuries the cross has symbolized his love and agony. So this circle will be the Martian Christ. This is how we shall bring him to Mars. The father stirred fretfully and looked at each other. You, Brother Matthias, will create in glass a replica of the circle, a globe filled with bright fire. It will stand upon the altar. Cheap magic trick, muttered Father Stone. Father Peregrine went on patiently. On the contrary, we are giving them God in an understandable image. If Christ had come to us on earth as an octopus, would we have accepted him readily? He spread his hands. Was it then a cheap magic trick of the Lord's to bring us Christ through Jesus in man's shape? After we bless the church we built here and sanctify its altar and this symbol, do you think Christ would refuse to inhabit the shape before us? You know in your hearts he would not refuse. But the body of a soulless animal, said Brother Matthias. We've already gone over that many times since we returned this morning, Brother Matthias. These creatures saved us from the avalanche. They realized that self-destruction was sinful and prevented it time after time. Therefore, we must build a church in the hills, live with them, find their own special ways of sinning, the alien ways, and help them to discover God. The fathers did not seem pleased at the prospect. Is it because they are so odd to the eyes? Wondered Father Peregrine. But what is a shape? Only a cup for the blazing soul that God provides us all. If tomorrow I found that sea lions suddenly possessed free will, intellect, know when not to sin, knew what life was and tempered justice with mercy and life with love, I would build an undersea cathedral. If the sparrows should miraculously, with God's will, gain everlasting souls tomorrow, I would freight a church with helium and take after them, for all souls in any shape, if they have free will and are aware of their sins, will burn in hell unless given their rightful communions. I would not let a Martian sphere burn in hell either, for it is a sphere only in mine eyes. When I close my eyes, it stands before me, an intelligence, a love, a soul. I must not deny it. But that glass globe you wish placed on the altar, protested Father Stone. Consider the Chinese, replied Father Peregrine imperturbably. What sort of Christ do Christian Chinese worship? An Oriental Christ, naturally. You've all seen Oriental nativity scenes. How is Christ dressed? In Eastern robes. Where does he walk? In Chinese settings of bamboo and misty mountain and crooked tree. His eyelids taper, his cheekbones rise. Each country, each race adds something to our Lord. I am reminded of the Virgin of Guadalupe, to whom all Mexico pays its love. Her skin. Have you noticed the paintings of her? A dark skin, like that of her worshippers. Is that blasphemy? Not at all. It is not logical that men should accept a God, no matter how real, of another color. I often wonder why our missionaries do well in Africa with a snow-white Christ. Perhaps because white is a sacred color, in albino or any other form to the African tribes. Given time, mightn't Christ darken there too? The form does not matter. Content is everything. We cannot expect these Martians to accept an alien form. We shall give them Christ in their own image. There's a flaw in your reasoning, Father, said Father Stone. Won't the Martians suspect us of hypocrisy? They will realize we don't worship a round globular Christ, but a man with limbs and a head. How do we explain the difference? By showing there is none. Christ will fill any vessel that is offered. Bodies or globes, he is there. Each will worship the same thing in a different guise. What is more, we must believe in this globe we give the Martians. We must believe in a shape which is meaningless to us as to form. The spheroid will be Christ, and we must remember that we ourselves and the shape of our earth Christ will be meaningless, ridiculous, a squander of material to these Martians. Father Peregrine laid aside his chalk. Let us go into the hills and build our church. The fathers began to pack their equipment. The church was not a church, but an area cleared of rocks, a plateau on one of the low mountains, soil smoothed and brushed, an altar established whereon Brother Matthias placed the fiery globe he had constructed. At the end of 6 days of work, the church was ready. What shall we do with this? Father Stone tapped an iron bell they had brought along. What does a bell mean to them? I imagine I brought it for our own comfort, admitted Father Peregrine. We need a few familiarities. This church seems so little like a church. We feel somewhat absurd here, even I, for it is something new, this business of converting the creatures of another world. I feel like a ridiculous play actor at times, and I pray to God to lend me strength. Many of the fathers are unhappy. Some of them joke about all this, Father Peregrine. I know. We put this bell in a small tower for their comfort anyway. What about the organ? We'll play it at the first service tomorrow. For the Martians, I know, but again, I suppose for our own comfort, our own music. Later we may discover theirs. They arose very early on Sunday morning and moved through the coldness like pale phantoms. Rime tinkling on their habits, covered with chimes, they were shaking down showers of silver water. "I wonder if it is Sunday here on Mars," mused Father Peregrine. Seeing Father Stone wince, he hastened on. "It might be Tuesday or Thursday. Who knows? But no matter. My idle fancy. It's Sunday to us. Come." The fathers walked into the flat, wide area of the church and knelt, shivering and blue-lipped. Father Peregrine said a little prayer, put his cold fingers to the organ keys. Music went up like a flight of pretty birds. He touched the keys like a man moving his hands among the weeds of a wild garden, starting up great soarings of beauty into the hills. The music calmed the air, smelled the fresh smell of morning. The music drifted into the mountains and shook down mineral powders in a dusty rain. The fathers waited. "Well, Father Peregrine," Father Stone eyed the empty sky where the sun was rising furnace red. "I don't see our friends." "Let me try again." Father Peregrine was perspiring. He built an architecture of Bach, stone by exquisite stone, raising a music cathedral so vast that its farthest chancels were in Nineveh, the farthest domed at St. Peter's left hand. The music stayed and did not crash, in ruin when it was over, but partook of a series of white clouds, was carried away among other lands. The sky was still empty. "They'll come." But Father Peregrine felt the panic in his chest, very small, growing. "Let us pray. Let us ask them to come. They read minds. They know." The fathers lowered themselves yet again, in rustlings and whispers. They prayed. And to the east, out of the icy mountains of 7 o'clock on Sunday morning, or perhaps Thursday morning, or maybe Monday morning on Mars, came the soft, fiery globes. They hovered and sank and filled the area around the shivering priests. Thank you, Lord." Father Peregrine shut his eyes tight and played the music. When it was done, he turned and gazed upon his wondrous congregation. And a voice touched his mind, and the voice said, "We have come for a little while." "You must stay," said Father Peregrine. "For a little while only," said the voice quietly. "We've come to tell you certain things. We should have spoken sooner. We'd hoped you might go on your way if left alone." Father Peregrine started to speak, but the voice hushed him. "We are the old ones," the voice said, and it entered him like a blue gaseous flare, burned in the chambers of his head. "We are the old Martians, who left our marble cities and went into the hills, forsaking the material life we had lived. So very long ago we became these things that we now are. Once we were men, with bodies and legs and arms such as yours. Legend has it that one of us, a good man, discovered a way to free man's soul and intellect, to free him of bodily ills and melancholies, of deaths and transfigurations, of ill humors and senilities. So we took on the look of lightning and blue fire, have lived in the winds and skies and hills forever after that, neither prideful nor arrogant, neither rich nor poor, passionate nor cold. We have lived apart from those we left behind, those other men of this world, and how we came to be has been forgotten, the process lost. We shall never die nor do harm. We have put away the sins of the body and live in God's grace. We covet no other property. We have no property. We do not steal, nor kill, nor lust, nor hate. We live in happiness. We cannot reproduce. We do not eat or drink or make war. All the sensualities and childishnesses and sins of the body were stripped away when our bodies were put aside. We have left sin behind, Father Peregrine. It is burned like the leaves in the autumn wicker. It is gone like the soiled snow of an evil winter. It is gone like the sexual flowers of a red and yellow spring. It is gone like the panting nights of hottest summer. Our season is temperate. Our clime is rich in thought. Father Peregrine was standing now, for the voice touched him at such a pitch it almost shook him from his senses. It was an ecstasy and a fire washing through him. "We wish to tell you that we appreciate your building this place for us. We have no need of it. For each of us is a temple unto himself. We need no place wherein to cleanse ourselves. Forgive us for not coming to you sooner. But we are separate and apart and have talked to no one for 10,000 years, nor have we interfered in any way with the life of this planet. It has come into your mind now that we are the lilies of the field. We toil not, neither do we spin. You are right. So we suggest that you take the parts of this temple into your own new cities, and there cleanse them. For rest assured, we are happy and at peace." Their fathers were on their knees in the vast blue light. Father Peregrine was down, too. They were weeping. It did not matter that their time had been wasted. It did not matter to them at all. The blue spheres murmured and began to rise once more on a breath of cool air. "May I?" cried Father Peregrine, not daring to ask, eyes closed. "May I come again some day, that I may learn from you?" Blue fires blazed. The air trembled. Yes, someday he might come again. Someday. Then the fire balloons blew away and were gone. He was like a child on his knees, tears streaming from his eyes, crying to himself, "Come back, come back." And at any moment, Grandfather might lift him and carry him upstairs to his bedroom in a long-gone Ohio town. They filed down out of the hills at sunset. Looking back, Father Peregrine saw the blue fires burning. No, he thought, we couldn't build a church for the likes of you, your beauty itself. What church could compete with the fireworks of the pure soul? Father Stone moved in silence beside him. At last he spoke. "The way I see it is there's a truth on every planet, all parts of the big truth. On a certain day, they'll all fit together like the pieces of a jigsaw. This has been a shaking experience. I'll never doubt again, Father Peregrine, for this truth here is as true as Earth's truth, and they lie side by side. We'll go on to other worlds, adding the sum of the parts of the truth until one day the whole total will stand before us like the light of a new day." "That's a lot coming from you, Father Stone." "I'm sorry now, in a way. We're going down to the town to handle our own kind. Those blue lights now, when they settled about us, and that voice." Father Stone shivered. Father Peregrine reached out to take the other's arm. They walked together. "And you know," said Father Stone, finally, fixing his eyes on Brother Matthias, who strode ahead with a glass sphere tenderly carried in his arms. Glass sphere, with the blue phosphorus light glowing forever inside it. "You know, Father Peregrine, that globe there, yes, it's him. It is him, after all." Father Peregrine smiled, and they walked down out of the hills toward the new town. February 2034. Interim. They brought in 15,000 lumber feet of Oregon pine to build 10th City, 79,000 feet of California redwood, and hammered together a clean, neat little town by the edge of the stone canals. On Sunday nights you could see red, blue, and green stained glass light in the churches, with the voices singing the numbered hymns. "We will now sing 79. We'll now sing 94. In certain houses you heard the hard clatter of a typewriter, the novelist at work, the scratch of a pen, the poet at work, or no sound at all, the former beachcomber at work. It was as if, in many ways, a great earthquake had shaken loose the roots and cellars of an Iowa town, and then, in an instant, a whirlwind twister of Oz-like proportions had carried the entire town off to Mars to set it down without a bump." April 2034. The musicians. The boys would hike far out into the Martian country. They carried odorous paper bags into which from time to time upon the long walk they would insert their noses to inhale the rich smell of the ham and mayonnaise pickles, and to listen to the liquid gurgle of the orange soda in the warming bottles. Stringing their grocery bags full of clean, watery green onions and odorous liverwurst and red ketchup and white bread, they would dare each other on past the limits set by their stern mothers. They would run, yelling, "First one there gets to kick." They hiked in summer, autumn, or winter. Autumn was most fun, because there they imagined, like on Earth, they were scuttering through autumn leaves. First they would come like a scatter of jackstones on the marble flats beside the canals, the candy-cheeked boys with blue agate eyes, panting onion-tated commands to each other. For now that they had reached the dead, forbidden town, it was no longer a matter of last one there's a girl, the first one gets to play musician. Now the dead town's doors lay wide, and they thought they could hear the faintest crackle, like autumn leaves, from inside. They would hush themselves forward by each other's elbows, carrying sticks, remembering their parents had told them, "Not there. No, to none of the old towns. Watch where you hike. You get the beating of your life when you come home. We'll check your shoes." And there they stood in the dead city, a heap of boys, their hiking lunches half devoured, daring each other in shrieky whispers. "Here goes nothing." Suddenly one of them took off into the nearest stone house, through the door, across the living room, into the bedroom, where without half looking he would kick about, thrash his feet, and the black leaves would fly through the air, brittle, thin as tissue cut from midnight sky. Behind him there would race 6 others, and the first boy there would be the musician, playing the white xylophone bones beneath the outer covering of black flakes. A great skull would roll to view like a snowball. They shouted. Ribs like spider legs, plagiarized as a dull harp, and the black flakes of mortality blowing all about them in their scuffling dance. The boys pushed and heaved and fell in the leaves. The death they'd turned the dead to flakes and dryness, into a game played by boys whose stomachs gurgled with orange pop. And then, out of one house into another, into 17 houses, mindful that each of the towns in its turn was being burned clean of its horrors by the firemen, antiseptic warriors with shovels and bins, shoveling away at the ebony tatters and peppermint stick bones, slowly but assuredly separating the terrible from the normal. So they must play very hard, these boys. The firemen would soon be here. Then, luminous with sweat, they gnashed at their last sandwiches. With the final kick, the final marimba concert, the final autumnal lunge through leaf stacks, they went home. The mothers examined their shoes for black flakelets, which, when discovered, resulted in scalding baths and fatherly beatings. By the year's end, the firemen had raked the autumn leaves and the white xylophones away. It was no more fun. May 2034. The Wilderness. Oh, the good time has come at last. It was twilight, and Janice and Leonora packed steadily in their summer house, singing songs, eating little, holding to each other when necessary. They never glanced at the window where the night gathered deep and the stars came out bright and cold. "Listen," said Janice. A sound like a steamboat down the river. It was a rocket in the sky. And beyond that, banjos playing. No, only the summer night crickets in this year 2034. 10,000 sounds breathed through the town and the weather. Janice, head bent, listened. Long, long ago, 1849, this very street had breathed the voices of ventriloquists, preachers, fortune-tellers, fools, scholars, gamblers, gathered at this self-same Independence, Missouri, waiting for the moist earth to bake, the great tidal grasses to come up heavy enough to hold their weight of their carts, their wagons, their indiscriminate destinies, and their dreams. Oh, the good time has come at last. To Mars we are going, sir. 5,000 women in the sky. That's quite a springtime sowing, sir. That's an old Wyoming song, said Leonora. Change the words. It's fine for 2034. Janice lifted a matchbook of food pills, calculating the totals of things carried in those high-axled, tall-bedded wagons. For each man, each woman, incredible tonnages. Hams, bacon slabs, sugar, salt, flour, dried fruits, pilot bread, citric acid, water, ginger, pepper, a list as big as the land. Yet here today, pills that fit a wristwatch fed you not from Fort Laramie to Hangtown, but all across a wilderness of stars. Janice threw wide the closet door and almost screamed. Darkness and night and all the spaces between the stars looked out at her. Long years ago, 2 things had happened. Her sister had locked her shrieking in a closet, and at a party, playing hide-and-seek, she had run through the kitchen and into a long dark hall. But it wasn't a hall. It was an unlit stairwell, a swallowing blackness. She had run out upon empty air. She had pedaled her feet, screaming, and fallen in midnight blackness into the cellar. It took a long while, a heartbeat, to fall. She had smothered in that closet a long, long time without daylight, without friends, no one to hear her screaming. Away from everything, locked in darkness, falling in darkness, shrieking. The 2 memories, now with the closed door wide, with darkness like a velvet shroud hung before her to be stroked by a trembling hand, with the darkness like a black panther breathing there, looking at her with unlit eyes. The 2 memories rushed out. Space and a falling. Space and being locked away, screaming. She and Leonora, working steadily, packing, being careful not to glance out the window at the frightening Milky Way and the vast emptiness. Only to have the long familiar closet, with its private night, remind them at last of their destiny. This was how it would be out there, sliding towards the stars in the night, the great hideous black closet, screaming but no one to hear, falling forever among the meteor clouds and godless comets, down the elevator shaft, down the nightmare coal chute into nothingness. She screamed. None of it came out her mouth. It collided upon itself in her chest and head. She screamed. She slammed the closet door. She lay against it. She felt the darkness breathe and yammer at the door, and she held it, trembling, eyes watering. She stood there a long time until the trembling vanished, watching Leonora work, and the hysteria, thus ignored, drained away, and at last was gone. The wristwatch ticked, the clean sound of normality in the room. 60 million miles. She moved at last to the window as if it were a deep well. I can't believe that men on Mars tonight are building towns, waiting for us. The only thing to believe is catching our rocket tomorrow. Janice raised a white gown like a ghost in the room. Strange, strange. To marry on another world. Let's go to bed. No. The call comes at midnight. I couldn't sleep thinking how to tell Will I've decided to take the Mars rocket. Oh, Leonora, think of it. My voice traveling 60 million miles on the light phone to him. I changed my mind so quickly. I'm scared. Our last night on Earth. Now they really knew and accepted it. Now the knowledge had found them out. They were going away. They might never come back. They were leaving the town of Independence in the state of Missouri on the continent of North America, surrounded by one ocean, which was the Atlantic, and another, the Pacific, none of which could be put in their traveling cases. They had shrunk from their final knowledge. Now it was facing them. They were struck numb. Our children, they won't be Americans or Earth people at all. We'll all be Martians the rest of our lives. I don't want to go, cried Janice suddenly. The panic rose in her with ice and fire. I'm afraid. The space, the darkness, the rocket, the meteors, everything gone. Why should I go out there? Leonora took hold of her shoulders and held her close, rocking her. It's a new world. It's like the old days. The men first and the women following. Why should I go? Tell me. Because, said Leonora at last, quietly seating her on the bed, Will is up there. His name was good to hear. Janice quieted. These men make it so hard, said Leonora. Used to be if a woman ran 200 miles after a man, it was something. Then they made it 1,000 miles. Now they put a whole universe between us. That can't stop us, can it? I'm afraid I'll be a fool on the rocket. I'll be a fool with you. Leonora got up. Now let's walk around town. Let's see everything one last time. Janice stared out at the town. Tomorrow night, this'll all be here, but we won't. People will wake up, eat, work, sleep, wake again. We won't know it. They'll never miss us. Leonora and Janice moved around each other as if they couldn't find the door. Come on. They opened the door, switched off the lights, stepped out, and shut the door behind them. The sky, there was a great coming in, vast flowering motions, huge whistlings and whirlings, snowstorms falling, helicopters, white flakes, dropping quietly. From west and east and north and south, the women were arriving, their hearts nearly tissue-papered in their suitcases. Through all the night sky, you saw helicopters blizzard down. The hotels were full. Private homes were making accommodations. Tent cities rose in meadows and pastures like strange, ugly flowers. The town and the country were warm with more than summer night. Warm with women's pink faces and the sunburnt faces of new men watching the sky. Beyond the hills, rockets tried their fire, sounded like a giant organ pressed upon all its keys at once, shuddering every crystal window and every hidden bone. You felt it in your jaw, your toes, your fingers, a shivering. Leonora and Janet sat in the drugstore among strange women. You ladies look pretty, but you sure look sad, said the soda fountain man. 2 chocolate malteds. Leonora smiled for both of them as if Janice were mute. They gazed at the chocolate drink as if it was a rare museum painting. Malts would be scarce for many years on Mars. Janice fussed in her purse and took out an envelope, reluctantly, and laid it on the marble counter. This is from Will to me. It came in the rocket mail 2 days ago. It was this that made up my mind for me, made me decide to go. I didn't tell you. I want you to see it now. Go ahead. Read the note. Leonora shook the note out of the envelope and read it aloud. Dear Janice, this is our house if you decide to come to Mars. Will. Leonora tapped the envelope again and a color photograph dropped out, glistening on the counter. It was a picture of a house. Dark, mossy, ancient, caramel brown, comfortable house with red flowers and green cool ferns bordering it, and a disreputable hairy ivy on the porch. But Janice, what? This is a picture of your house, here on Earth. Here on Elm Street. No. Look close. And they looked again together. On both sides of the comfortable dark house, and behind it was scenery that was not Earth scenery. The soil was a strange color of violet. The grass was the faintest bit red. The sky glowed like a gray diamond. A strange crooked tree grew to one side, looking like an old woman with crystals in her white hair. That's the house Wilt's built for me, said Janice, on Mars. It helps to look at it. All yesterday, when I had the chance, alone, was most afraid and panicky, I took out this picture and looked at it. They both gazed at the dark, comfortable house 60 million miles away, familiar but unfamiliar, old but new, the yellow light shining in the right front parlor window. That man, Will, said Leonora, nodding her head, knows just what he's doing. They finished their drinks. Outside, a vast, warm crowd of strangers wandered by. The snow fell steadily in the summer sky. I feel like I'm dead, thought Janice. And in the graveyard on a spring night, everything alive but me. Everyone moving and ready to go on with life without me. It's like I felt each spring when I was very young, passing the graveyard and weeping for them because they were dead and it didn't seem fair. On nights as soft as that I was alive. I was guilty of living. And now, here tonight, I feel they have taken me from the graveyard. Let me go above the town just once more to see what it is like to be living, to be a town and a people, before they slam the black door on me again. Softly, softly, like two white paper lanterns on a night wind, women moved over their lifetime and their past, over the meadows where the tent cities glowed, the highways where supply trucks would be clustered and running until dawn. They hovered above it all for a long time. The courthouse clock was booming 11:45 when they came like spider webs floating from the stars, touching on the moonlit pavement before Janice's old house. The city was asleep. Janice's house waited for them to come in, searching for their sleep, which was not there. Is this us here? Asked Janice. Janice Smith and Leonora Holmes in the year 2034. Yes. Janice licked her lips and stood straight. I wish it was some other year. 1492, 1612. Leonora sighed, and the wind in the trees sighed with her, moving away. It's always Columbus Day or Plymouth Rock Day. I'll be damned if I know what we women can do about it. Be old maids. Or do just what we're doing. They opened the door of the warm night house, the sounds of the town dying slowly in their ears. As they shut the door, the phone began to ring. The call, cried Janice, running. Leonora came into the bedroom after her, and already Janice had the receiver up and was saying, Hello? Hello? And the operator in a far city was readying the immense apparatus which would tie the two worlds together. Two women waited, one sitting and pale, the other standing, but just as pale, bent towards her. There was a long pause, full of stars and time, a waiting pause, not unlike the last 3 years for all of them. And now the moment had arrived. It was Janice's turn to phone through millions upon millions of miles of meteors and comets, running away from the yellow sun which might boil or burn her words or scorch the meaning from them, her voice like a silver needle through everything, in stitches of talking across the big night, reverberating from the moons of Mars and rushing on. And then her voice found its way to a man in a room in a city there on another world, 5 minutes by radio away. And her message was this. Hello, Will? This is Janice. She swallowed. They say I haven't much time. A minute. She closed her eyes. I want to talk slow, but they say talk fast and get it all in. So, I want to say, I've decided. I will come up there. I'll get on the rocket tomorrow. I will come up there to you after all. And I love you. I hope you can hear me. I love you. It's been so long. Her voice motioned on its way to that unseen world. Now with her message sent, the words said, she wanted to call them back, to censor, to rearrange them, to make a prettier sentence, a fairer explanation of her soul. But already the words were hung between planets, and if by some cosmic radiation they would have been illuminated, caught fire and vaporous wonder there, her love would have lit a dozen worlds and startled the night side of Earth into a premature dawn, she thought. Now the words were not hers at all. They belonged to space. They belonged to no one until they arrived, and they were traveling at 186,000 miles a second to their target. What will he say to me? What will he say back in his minute of time? She wondered. She fussed with and twisted the watch on her wrist. The light phone receiver on her ear crackled, and space talked to her with electrical jigs and dances and audible auroras. Has he replied? Whispered Leonora. Shh, said Janice, bending as if sick. And the voice came through space from him. I hear him, cried Janice. What does he say? The voice called out from Mars and took itself through the places where there was no sunrise or sunset, but always the night with the sun in the middle of the blackness. And somewhere between Mars and Earth, everything in the message was lost, perhaps in a sweep of electrical gravity rushing by on the flood tides of a meteor, or interfered with by a rain of silver meteors. In any event, the small words and the unimportant words of the message were washed away. His voice came through saying only one word, love. After that, there was a huge night again, the sound of stars turning and suns whispering to themselves, the sound of her heart, like another world in space filling her earphones. Did you hear him? Asked Leonora. Janice could only nod. What did he say? What did he say? Cried Leonora. But Janice could not tell anyone. It was much too good to tell. She sat listening to that one word again and again, as her memory played it back to her. She sat listening while Leonora took the phone away from her without her knowing it and put it back on its hook. Then they were in bed, the lights out, the night wind blowing through the rooms, the smell of the long journey in darkness and stars, their voices talking of tomorrow, the days after tomorrow, which would not be days at all, but day-nights of timeless time. Their voices faded away into sleep or wakeful thinking. Janice lay alone in her bed. Is this how it was over a century ago? She wondered. The women the night before lay ready for sleep, or not ready, in the small towns of the East, heard the sound of horses in the night, the creak of the Conestoga wagons ready to go, the brooding of oxen under the trees, the cry of children already lonely before their time. All the sounds of arrivals and departures into the deep forests and fields, the blacksmiths working in their own red hells through midnight, the smell of bacon and hams ready for the journeying, the heavy feel of the wagons like ships foundering with goods, with water in the wooden kegs to tilt and slop across prairies, the chickens hysterical and they're slung beneath the wagon crates, the dogs running out to the wilderness ahead and fearful, running back with a look of empty space in their eyes. Is this then how it was so long ago? On the rim of the precipice, on the edge of the cliff of stars, in their time the smell of buffalo, in our time the smell of the rocket. Is this then how it was? And she decided, as sleep assumed the dreaming for her, that yes, yes indeed, very much so, irrevocably, this was as it had always been, would forever continue to be. 2035, 2036, the naming of names. They came to the strange blue lands and put their names upon the lands. Here was the Hinkston Creek, and Lustig Corners, and Black River, and Driscoll Forest, and Peregrine Mountain, and Wilder Town, all the names of people and the things that the people did. Here was the place where Martians killed the first Earthmen. It was Red Town and had to do with blood. And here where the second expedition was destroyed. It was named Second Try. Each of the other places where the rocket men had set down their fiery cauldrons to burn the land, the names were left like cinders. And of course there was a Spender Hill in Nathaniel Yorktown. The old Martian names were names of water and air and hills. They were the names of snows that emptied south in stone canals and filled the empty seas. The names of sealed and buried sorcerers and towers and obelisks. And the rockets struck at the names like hammers, breaking away the marble into shale, shattering the crockery milestones that named the old towns, in the rubble of which great pylons were plunged with new names: Iron Town, Steel Town, Aluminum City, Electric Village, Corn Town, Grain Villa, Detroit 2, all the mechanical names and the metal names from Earth. And after the towns were built and named, the graveyards were built and named too: Green Hill, Moss Town, Boot Hill, Bidawee. The first dead went into their graves. But after everything was pinned down and neat and in its place, and everything was safe and certain, the towns were well enough fixed and the loneliness was at a minimum, then the sophisticates came in from Earth. They came on parties and vacations, on little shopping trips for trinkets and photographs and the atmosphere. They came to study and apply sociological laws. They came to stars and badges and rules and regulations, bringing some of the red tape that had crawled across Earth like an alien weed, letting it grow on Mars, wherever it could take root. They began to plan people's lives and libraries. They began to instruct and push about the very people who had come to Mars to get away from being instructed and ruled and pushed about.